You don't have water?
I do.
Rookie.
You're killing me. I'm done talking, guys. I'm just gonna sit here and get drunk.
Hey everybody, welcome to Northern Proof. My name's Ian. I'm here with a few buddies today and one special guest. So let's drink some mid-shelf bourbon.
All right, I'm Dave, and I am looking forward to drinking this tonight, boys. A little blind sample testing. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. I'm Daryl, the Whiskey Sith. You can find us on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just search up Northern Proof.
And this is a very exciting episode for us because we have our very first guest on the show, a very good friend of ours, Steve Jensen. Say hi, Steve.
What's up, guys? How's it going? Glad to be here. Looking forward to drinking some of these whiskeys, all familiar whiskeys, but looking forward to doing the blind tasting and seeing how we do.
Steve is a great friend of ours, and we've mentioned in a bunch of our other episodes that we have done a bunch of Zoom chats with our friends doing different whiskey samplings and tastings, and Steve's one of those friends. He is the kind of guy that if you drop a sample bottle off at his house, you're going to get a note with some tastings coming back your way, and he's going to let you know what he thinks of that. Steve's got a great palate, and I'm excited to get through some blind taste bourbons tonight.
Yes. Attainable bourbons.
Attainable
Ian,
bourbons.
You poured these samples for us, Ian. So what was it that made you pick these 5 samples for us?
Well, in my mind was what's attainable, that's good, that people also want to know about, right? So we have Buffalo Trace, we have Four Roses Single Barrel, we have Wild Turkey 101, we have Knob Creek, just the straight small batch Knob Creek, we have Elijah Craig small batch. So all around that 90 to 100 proof 101 for Wild Turkey range, but they're all available on the shelf for the most part. I know it ranges in the areas you are, but for the most part, attainable, fairly cheap whiskey. I wouldn't say cheap, but like good quality for the price, one of the cheaper bourbons. And we're just going to see where they all sit. And I hope we have a kind of a range of preferences with this as well. Because there's a lot of really good whiskey here, and I'm curious to see what we like blind. So,
Ian, one like of all these bottles, Elijah Craig is probably the most expensive, right? At $50 Canadian.
Four Roses Single Barrel would be.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Elijah Craig's probably a couple dollars cheaper than that, and then the Knob Creek's up there as well with almost $50.
Yeah, it's like $47.
Yeah.
But still, I think $50-$40 is a good price to be spending on a bourbon. You're getting something that you know you're gonna hopefully enjoy, and you're not over investing, especially if you're getting into whiskey for the first time and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I almost called this bottom shelf bourbons, because in my mind these are like the lowest that I'll go to. But these aren't bottom shelf by any means. These are like quality whiskey, but it's just my kind of go-to whiskeys.
And we're doing this all blind. So Ian poured these samples for us. We've got them all labeled with different letters. So if you hear us referring to letters, that's why we're doing it. He labeled it, then labeled it again to confuse himself. So hopefully it's as blind for you as it is for us, Ian.
It's completely blind because of the legend that I have here that I'm not looking at. So I made another legend based on the legend because I remembered what it was.
That's amazing.
All right, so let's jump into the nose. I think we should nose them all first, and just see kind of how it ranges for each one. We're in a pretty generic proof point from 90 to 100 proof. So, I don't think we'll have anything spike on us for intensity wise, but I think you might get some flavor difference through them all. So let me know what you guys think.
A is starting off right. That is just a good solid bourbon on the nose.
Yeah.
It's got the sweetness, the oakiness, the caramels.
Yeah.
Oh, but then B is different.
B follows it right up.
It does. Oh, this is fun.
C has got a lot of oak, and the legs on it are solid.
And E is quite different. I don't know if it's just going through them, but E, I'm not getting that same smokiness. There's almost like I don't know what to say, like a floral note to it or something like that.
I find D and E so far the lightest nose.
Yeah.
So I feel like A, B, and C are kind of powerhouses of the 5, and then D and E are a little lighter.
Oh, this is frustrating because I knew Wild Turkey 101 was going to be in here, and I've been drinking it this week, and I was like, every time I was drinking it, I was studying it because I wanted to be able to just like, bam, it's this one right off the bat. I know it, but I can't tell it. It's frustrating me. Well, off the bat, these are all great on the nose. So if you're getting into any of these mid-shelf bourbons here, you know you're gonna be in for a good time. The nose is important to me. I know we're getting through the nose and it's weird because you're watching us sniff our glasses, but a good nose on a whiskey is really important to me. That's what cherishes the whiskey, makes it last a little bit longer, makes you sit with it. I mean, people, when you're at a party, might think you're a little weird and snobbish sniffing your drink, but I just enjoy it so much. I don't know what it is that I love that much about it.
I completely agree. I would say nose is the first most important thing for me because if I'm smelling it and I enjoy it, then the palate kind of should follow. Not all whiskeys do, but a lot of the time you're excited for it. And then I like a really good finish. So I'd say nose is 1, finish is 2, and then the palate is kind of 3rd for me. What do you think, Steve?
Yo, I totally agree. I find, especially if I have a pour that's going to probably last me a good hour and a half, like half the fun is just sitting there sniffing on it for the time. Like I don't just like sniff and then go for the palate and just continue drinking it for the night. I just keep going back to the nose and sniffing on it while if I'm watching a show or something like that. Like that's like a big part of my enjoyment around bourbons. So.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for this one. This is such a good flight. Daryl, what's your favorite part of the whiskey?
I think the back half of a tasting, letting it sit in your mouth, and then that finish. That the finish is what's going to draw me back to another pour on that, or am I switching to a different whiskey at that point? If it's bland and it disappears or doesn't have the right lasting calling, if that makes sense, then I'm on to something else for that evening.
Yeah, it's got to bring you back. I got into A already, guys. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead as we were talking.
I was about to say I
just
can't.
Like
I'm drooling and I can't wait any longer.
Exactly.
Do you have any guesses on the nose so far?
Okay, if we're
you don't have to have any guesses, but if you're like, oh, I think B is blank.
I haven't had all of these before, so I'm having to go a bit off of memory. I think C might be the Wild Turkey 101.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I think E, I feel, is Buffalo Trace possibly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm just throwing things out here. I'm gonna say A's 4 Roses. B is Knob Creek. C is Wild Turkey 101. I don't remember what the other ones were, but Buffalo Trace is E and whatever's last is D. We're going to have to go back through all of this to double check to see if I was right on this.
Definitely will. I'm not going to guess at all. But, yeah. I think you might be onto something with C being Wild Turkey.
Yeah. A, I'm getting... It's weird. Getting a lot of like apple juice smell off A.
Oh,
apple
yes.
juice.
I was about to just say apples.
Yeah.
And B, I get a...
Absolutely. Like red apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not tart. Like it's a sweet red.
It's got a bit of a bitter to it. A. Like a very earthy taste on it. I'm not getting the same sweetness that you're getting off the nose on the palate.
I like it though a lot.
Yeah, it's got a almost like an orange rind in there.
Sorry, Ian, you said the 4 Roses that is in this, it's the single barrel, not the small batch?
Yeah, the single barrel. So it's the square bottle like that.
That's a nice bottle.
It is. It's a beautiful bottle.
Sweet bottle.
And if you watch The Ranch, they
Oh, really?
yeah, it's in there a wee bit.
I just picked up the small batch after you talking about how good it was. So
It's $5 cheaper. It's 5 proof less, but I think it's more consistent.
okay.
In my opinion, I really like it.
That's typically what happens with a small batch versus a single barrel, though, right? Is a consistent taste, like they're blending to get a certain profile, right?
Yeah, they're taking a whole bunch of barrels and making a consistent batch. Now the batches may vary a little bit, but overall they're going to be more consistent. Where the single barrel can vary a fair bit.
Now we're going to be going through a bunch of different bourbons here. How much is it going to affect the next bourbon from the first one we've had? I think it'll be a good comparison to tell yourself like what you like a little bit better, but I'm just interested to see what kind of notes, whether they cross over throughout them. I mean, they're all bourbons, so they're going to have some similar notes to them. But I was just like, I picked up B to smell it and was getting like banana hard on the nose.
Really?
And I don't know if it's like coming from like it's like apples and banana.
some wiggles there.
But like
Butterscotch on B.
maybe it's the butterscotch, but I'm almost getting like a banana bread smell on it. Like
Okay.
Daryl's wife's
Yeah.
banana bread.
Yeah.
That's a common smell you get.
My guess is that B is the Four Roses,
You think B is the Four Roses?
based on. I always remember B, like the single barrel, having more of a punch, like
Yeah.
and that's got it.
Did you try it? Because the palate is like a kicked up version of the nose.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
for
got
sure.
good legs.
I didn't say that until I tasted it.
Yeah.
Really liking that.
Interesting. I have no clue what that one is.
Oh, but then coming back to A has a great oakiness that I like.
It's got a dry in there about midway through.
Yeah.
Maybe a little nutmeg. Given
Oh,
that.
you like the nutmeg?
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is fun. I love being able to just like jump through different ones and slow me down because I might just like speed up through all of these because I want to get the differences between them before I like settle down with one. But going back to A is giving me the oakiness that the wild oak was giving me throughout the week that I was sipping on. Because like I even like gave my wife the glass after to be like, what do you smell in this? And she's like, oh my God, that smells like campfire. I'm like, I know, I love it. I love it all.
Yeah, C is no. I don't know.
He's got a nice spicy finish on it.
Yeah,
Cinnamon.
that's what makes me think
See,
it's
yes.
101.
Mm.
It does have a cinnamon finish.
Mhm.
Yeah, not cinnamon hearts, just cinnamon.
Oh, C's really good.
Mm.
And I got oak on C the most. When first nosing it, I got the most oak on C.
Yeah. Oh, that is a good
Yeah,
freaking bourbon. Wow.
He's 101. B Four Roses.
You might be onto something with B being Four Roses just based on the palate. Like it hit my tongue a lot hotter than I was expecting.
Oh my gosh, it has such a unique nosing B. For me, B is very different than A and C.
I'm trying to
There's
get C
just-
off my tongue to move on. It's just sitting there.
That's a really good point, though. Dave, you mentioned, does the whiskey that you have before and after affect what's happening? And it totally will.
Yeah.
Because you're excited about one, then you go to the next one, and it might be a more mild whiskey, and then you're like, oh, what's this? But it could be a really great whiskey. It's just you're affected by the first one.
I gotta say, C does have legs though. It lasts quite well on the finish.
Which makes me wonder if it's Elijah Craig.
C?
I've never had Elijah Craig.
C,
Oh.
yeah. I get
Fine.
like, I don't know.
It doesn't feel sweet enough on the palate. I find Elijah Craig usually has a lot of honey for me.
Does it? That I got honey on B.
I'm going along and smelling like E. I just got like this wave of like fresh white baked bread when I sniff.
Like sourdough bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drinking whiskey's making me hungry. Oh,
Mm.
they're all great. I must say, like I remember when we were going through the noses, D and E seemed a little lighter, not quite as excited about them. But now as I'm working my way along the line, coming back to E, it does. It's got a great nose to it. There's a vanilla to it as well.
Hmm.
You guys find that D really disappeared quick?
I really like the initial palette on it though, but like you say, it's
Mhm.
nose and it doesn't last. So right there, it's like two of the three things that you look for. It doesn't.
It's got a dry, like a astringency though.
Yeah.
Kind of dries
Yeah.
your mouth out.
Really kind of like puckers you up a little bit.
Kind of
Mhm.
turns into a bit of a heat at the end, but then just disappears instantly.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
What I love about going in blind to stuff is you've got no predisposition of what you actually like,
Yeah.
because you have no idea.
Do we have a standout bourbon for anyone? Is any letter standing out for you in the highest ranking?
For me,
Right
it's-
now I'm going.
What the heck was
Go ahead,
E?
Steve.
Sorry, I
For
just
me-
tasted E. There was some. I don't know what just happened to my mouth.
Dirty glass.
Nope, no, I get it. It's like Steve said sourdough bread, and I taste it on the palate too.
That is very unique. Oh, it's got a very strange finish to it too.
Hmm. I
Man,
think C and B are my standouts so far.
D and B. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say those are my 1 and 2.
I think
I would
A-
go B, C, D, A, E. I think for me.
Hmm.
I think A is my favorite nose right now.
I think A might be Buffalo Trace.
Yeah?
Yeah. I got a cherry, like an oaky cherry, smoky-ish kind of. It doesn't have the bite to be 100 yet. I think it's 95 proof. It's got a creaminess that I really like.
And
Anybody getting earthy peanuts out of E?
So
Oh,
peanut,
peanuts was the first thing I got off it when we first
yeah,
started.
that usually means Jim Beam.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
which would be Knob Creek,
In the same way that banana.
would be Jack Daniels.
Okay.
Yeah, peanut and Beam are pretty similar. That said, nuttiness in Heaven Hill, which is Elijah Craig,
Okay.
would be a similar kind of nuttiness to it. But I get like peanuts on
Yeah.
Jim Beam products.
Okay.
Have you ever had a Booker's? I get like straight peanut on that, or some of the Knob Creek single barrels, the high proof ones.
Okay.
I get a lot of nuttiness on that. Oh, and I get it completely on that now.
On E?
Yeah.
Big time, yeah.
I would have never thought peanuts as a note.
Do you get it though, Dave?
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the like the earthy sourdough type smell
might,
that we were
yeah.
pulling off, but like, yeah, you get like peanut shells.
Mhm.
It's not peanut butter.
It's like earthy peanuts, the
Mhm.
peanut shells, like out of Five Guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I get it on the palate too.
Not a fan of E. I would rate E probably my lowest right now, and I don't know if I would buy that bottle unless I already have it. In which case, I'm gonna drink it anyways.
I don't think there's a bad bourbon here, to be
No.
honest. Like there's
No.
definitely preferences.
I feel like I could buy any of these. Because even like our least favorite bourbon out of these five, it's only your least favorite of these five. If you were to pull it out on its own, you probably would like it, right? It's
Yeah.
just in comparison side by side to another one,
Yeah, which
That's
is
fair.
I'll have a preference, which is natural.
yeah, which is fun about blinds, and that's one thing people say. I've heard people say about blind tastings. You don't want to put really fancy whiskey in a blind tasting. So we've done the
Right.
blinds with the guys and whatnot.
Yeah.
But when I reveal them, everybody's pretty stoked for what they are. You know, it doesn't matter. Like I'm pouring good whiskey to you guys. If you don't like it, it's great. But for the most part, everybody's pretty excited for it. But if you have a Van Winkle product or a Pappy or a BTAC or a Fancy Four Roses, don't pour it blind. Show the bottle off. Get everybody
Yeah.
excited for what it is, and the hype around it will make you that much more excited about it.
Yeah.
It's not worth pouring that blind and then people going, oh, I don't know if I like this like $300 bottle or more, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I've kind of seen throughout my whiskey journey is that blind tastings are good for finding out what you like, but then
Yes.
also recognizing the fact that you probably like something that you wouldn't do blind because of the hype and the experience around it. And
Right.
Steve, Henry McKenna 10 is one of my favorite bottles of all time because of that experience at that Rochester Holiday Inn or whatever it was. We had a bunch of guys just hanging out after a round of golf, and it was delicious. Such a good whiskey. I've gotten bottles since, and I'm like, nope, this is not the same whiskey. I don't care for this that much. But that experience with those people made that bottle so good. And I kind of lean on that a lot. The people you're with, the experience you're having is really what makes that super special. So
I'm stuck between A and D. Which one's falling number 3? They're, I don't know if it's getting into palate fatigue because we've been through 5
This is
and
only
multiple
5.
times through. It's not cleansed at all. A, I love A on the nose, and I don't know if it's the glass for D. D, I don't know if you guys are getting it or if it's my glass. It seems very earthy.
C, I think, is probably one of my top. I keep coming back to it. I love the nose on C. I love the palate on C, and it's got a long cinnamon, like sparkly finish on your tongue, like that pop rocks almost feeling like it sits and it lingers nicely. So
Now
for
you're
me,
talking,
C
Dave.
is really hitting off all my check marks that I look for in a bourbon.
Yeah.
Preach it, brother. Yeah, C hasn't been knocked out of my number 1.
That's
B's
your
my
number one?
B's my number 2.
Yeah.
It's still a toss up between A and D.
B is really good too. I don't know what your ranking is, but if B's Elijah Craig, I have a buddy in Ohio. His nickname's the Tease, and he loves Elijah Craig. And he's like, Ian, start liking Elijah Craig. And I'm like, no, it's not my jam. I'm just not a fan of it.
He's not Elijah Craig.
I do not care for Elijah Craig. It's a bottle I'll buy to try and like it, but he loves it as his like daily drinker. And if B's Elijah Craig, I'm gonna be eating some crow. If C's Elijah Craig, I'm really eating some crow.
I think D. I think D is Elijah Craig.
D. That's also what I pegged it as.
So I know that I brought up my whiskey relationship and was like explaining it in an earlier episode as like I was getting into whiskey. Now we're getting engaged. And I think that high proof bourbon took me into the honeymoon phase because I find it hard to switch to a more mellow whiskey now, like going back to a 43% or a 40, like that lower proof is just, it doesn't do it for me as much anymore, where I'm just all in that honeymoon phase of high proof, the way that it just like lights up your mouth. It just like fires everything on all cylinders. And I think now I can handle that higher proof where before I couldn't take it as much. Yeah. So I'm just so in that phase of whiskey right now where I hope that, I don't know, I like it all, but I want to be able to enjoy those lighter Johnny Walkers and stuff a little bit more. But I think it's more just knowing what you're getting into with each pour and getting that mindset. But right now I'm just reaching high proof on my shelf. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like if I'm home, if I'm going to have like a good pour, it's going to be probably something a little lighter proof typically because it's a little bit cheaper. Those are the cheaper bottles. But if I'm going to sit down and enjoy something, like the lighter proof just does not do it for me. The complexity
Absolutely.
stuff just are not there. It's going to be something that I can sit and like sniff and like enjoy on the palate for a good length of time. And I'm only going to get that out of a high proof whiskey, I think, in my opinion. So.
So I have two things to say about that. One, the podcast guys, which I talk about, the Grease, who's on the podcast, did the same thing Dave's in right now. He went from ice in every whiskey because he couldn't handle it to like the highest proof possible. And now he's back down to like loving 90 proof whiskey because he just got that honeymoon phase over with. He's now married to the whiskey, and you know, life is mundane and boring.
You got a couple kids.
But like, I think that's just it. You get once you get acclimatized to that. And Daniel from the Whiskey Tribe mentioned this recent, I forget when it was. I think it might have been the Alberta Premium episode they talked about it. But he said, yeah, high proof whiskey is hard until you can handle it. And then once you can handle it, you're like, boom. And he said it's like a circuit breaker. It's not like a slow build up. It's a circuit breaker. As soon as your brain goes, you can handle high whiskey, you're like, what is this? Amazing. And it really challenges your taste buds and your whole whiskey profile. So I think that may be where you're at, Dave. You've dropped the ice cubes, you've added the proof, and you're stoked on it. So what's next, right? So
that explains it well.
All right. Do we have any rankings right now?
So I'm going to go C, B, D, A, E.
Okay.
I've got C as my number one, then A, then B, then D, then E.
Okay. Steve?
C and A are very similar to me right now.
C and A?
So I think C and A. So I think
Really?
that's why I'm holding them like 1, 2, because I'm enjoying them both equally right now.
Okay. What do you got, Steve?
I'm going to go B, C, A, D, E.
B, C, A, D, E.
Which is slightly different than what I said earlier. I had D and A switch, but I like A better than D.
I like A better than D as well. I have C, B, A, D, E. So Dave and myself have the same ranking.
Well, I went C, A, B, and you went C, B, A.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. None of us have the same ranking.
No, which is great.
Yeah.
And I like that. I know because Steve had B as his number one, right?
Yeah.
And I really enjoy the nose on B. I think going back to B, I don't think I've had B before. I'm noting that as like one of the whiskeys I haven't tried out of this group because it's got a super fun nose to it. It's got, like, for me, it still has that banana bread, that like vanilla. It's just a delightful nose.
But considering that we're calling it now, and B is Four Roses and C is Wild Turkey, I'd still take C because it's almost like it's like $15 cheaper or $16.
Wait. Did somebody call out the letters, or is Steve just going in hard
Steve's
with what the
going in
letters
hard.
are?
He's calling it out.
I was like, did I just doze off here, enjoying that last sip and into my own little world? Well, I can take my guess at what I think these are.
We're gonna need like a good 30 minutes for Ian to decipher his legend that he's created for
I
himself.
screwed myself over with this.
We're never gonna know.
No, we don't know what anything is anymore. Well, I'm gonna go with A is Elijah, B is Four Roses, C is 101, D is Buffalo, and E is Knob Creek.
So my guess was A was Buffalo Trace, B was Four Roses, C was 101, D was Elijah Craig, and E was Knob Creek.
Yeah, so that's the same as me, man.
Our last overall is E, which is Knob Creek,
Okay.
which we got peanut. Jim Beam makes sense.
Yeah.
100 proof, decent whiskey. I would rank it last, pretty much blind or not. That's where it stands. The single barrel 120 proof changes the game completely, but their
Different
small
whiskey.
batch is just a good, solid, let's make a hot toddy. D now, the second last one, it looks like overall. Yep, second last would be Wild Turkey 101.
What?
Wow.
Super surprising to me, except for when I'm doing it blind, I expect so much more out of it. The nose I find a little thin, and that makes sense on D. As soon as I nosed it, I'm like, oh, this could be Buffalo Trace because I find a thin nose on that sometimes.
Yeah.
Or it could be Wild Turkey, but I just hope to see whatever C is.
Is not Elijah Craig.
Yeah. If it's Elijah Craig, I'm in trouble.
So what surprised me on that was like D, I didn't get any dill on the nose, which I did on C, which I get on Wild Turkey 101.
Oh, I don't get any deal on
But I was getting, as
101.
I was going back and forth through them, I was getting the same spicy
Yeah.
notes at the end. So that's why I went Buffalo, because I just wasn't getting dill.
Or third in general is A, and A is Elijah Craig.
Okay.
Which makes sense because I picked that third, and it's got the proof and spiciness, but I thought that was Buffalo Trace, and it's actually Elijah Craig. So there's a lot of character there that I enjoy.
Yep.
So C is Buffalo Trace.
Sorry?
So C is Buffalo Trace.
No.
Oh.
I'm so
Yeah.
confused. I thought
So
for sure.
B is Buffalo Trace,
Okay.
which Steve ranked number 1.
Yeah. But none of
Dave ranked it third, and I ranked it second. And then C is Four Roses single barrel,
Okay.
Wow. I've
which
never had that
blows my mind because I usually don't care for it at all.
Yeah.
But it hit
Man.
every aspect.
that was your number one, right?
That was my number 1.
Yeah.
I was
It was-
fully expecting it. I was fully expecting Four Roses to be D.
Honestly, Buffalo Trace is such a good bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I
good.
actually can't believe what we pay for it here in Ontario compared to what other places pay. Like,
Yeah.
that's $100 bottle some places.
It depends where you are and how allocated or rare it is. In Ontario, we're pretty lucky to get it pretty continuously.
Yeah.
A
For
friend of mine.
under
like-
40. What's that?
Yeah.
Is it 43?
38 to 40 bucks.
Okay.
Really
That is
cool.
blowing me away because I was talking about B as like, this is definitely one I haven't had before, but I've crushed a bottle of Buffalo Trace
Yeah.
before, and I would have not picked those notes out of it.
The Four Roses, though, I'm shocked with. Like, I'm
That you
shocked,
ranked so high?
that it's
Yeah.
that high. It's a good whiskey, but usually I'm kind of crapping on it blind. So that's really impressive that it held up that well. And then I gotta eat my foot a little bit with my buddy T's in Ohio because I ranked Elijah Craig above my beloved Wild Turkey. So this is pretty generic mid-shelf bourbon. This is really close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I really love about it is how different they all are and how we were able to pick that up.
Yeah.
As novices, I include myself 100% in that novice category.
Absolutely.
Within the bourbon and whiskey community, we were able to definitely pick out different noses, different tastes, and what we liked better. So
Yeah. I'm happy with my top 3, which was Four Roses, Buffalo Trace, and 101 in that order.
yeah, you got 101.
Kind of surprised that 101 wasn't the number 1, but I go to single barrel Four Roses quite often.
Yeah.
And Buffalo Trace, I savor that bottle because I don't get out to an LCBO that carries it too often, being a little further north.
Buffalo Trace shocked me
Yeah.
because I've done it blind where it's the last by far. And
Really?
I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm like, why? It's thin, it's just not there. But again, it's not the same category. It's usually
Yeah.
like proof differences and all this stuff. Whereas in this category,
It's the one with the punch.
even low, yeah, like um, even lower proof, 5 proof lower, it's still got that kick in that. Um, it's really good.
I've got to say though, going back to our whiskeys that we just had, I just was finishing off E, and I know it rated last, so I was thinking let's just get through it. But when you're drinking it on its own, it is a solid bourbon. I must say, like if this was just a single pour, I don't think I would have critiqued it as hard. But when it's going up against some of these others that have just that extra bit of nose and extra bit of finish on them, then that's when it was kind of outweighing it. But I wouldn't hesitate from it. I think it's still a good bourbon on the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. You're comparing it against what really suits your palate versus that individual. I'm sitting down for the night and this is the bottle I'm pouring.
Yeah.
I can go to a Jim Beam Black on a night and really enjoy it. But if I go and pour a Jim Beam Black and follow it with a Wild Turkey 101 or a Woodford Reserve double oaked or even a distiller's release for Woodford, it's not going to compare for me. But I still enjoy it when I'm just sitting down and drinking that.
Mm-hmm.
So
It goes down
Steve,
very easy.
what do you think about the blind? What's your final takeoff of it all?
I love it. Like, you just mean the concept of it, or
Yeah,
like,
and are you surprised at all? Were you impressed with anything that you thought you might like, or the opposite of that?
I was actually surprised that I ranked the Elijah Craig as high as I did, because I've always kind of imagined that, not imagined, I just felt that it's been more of a plain Jane sort of bourbon,
Okay.
and I kind of I don't know, it sounds stupid to say, but I pride myself on liking the higher proof, more complex stuff, and I don't find it very complex. And so I was surprised that I ranked that as high as I did. But the concept of the blind tasting, I absolutely love. I think this is great.
Well, I love blind tastings because it really opens your eyes to what you're enjoying at that moment in time, what your palate's pulling out, not just from a taste, but from what it's actually enjoying that particular point in time. Because we could do this again tomorrow night and possibly rank these in a completely different order based on
Right.
what we ate that day, what our moods are. And that's a really interesting thing about the blinds.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I enjoy about the blind tasting is that, like Ian's expressed before, the fact that doesn't feel like he's very good at pulling out, like his palate's not very sophisticated. I'm kind of the same way, like, but I like the blind tasting because I don't necessarily have to sit with a bourbon and say I'm getting this, and this. I can literally just like line them up and say I like this better than this, I like this better than this, and so I don't feel the pressure to like say, oh, I'm getting this from this whiskey. It's like, no, I like this better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, I'm getting fresh nougat on a cold winter morning, and exactly.
When somebody starts pulling those kind of notes out, you know they're BSing their way through something. Just my personal opinion. Some people are very great with the palate, but most people are trying a little too hard. If they're like, I pull out coriander and thyme and rosemary, and it's like a fresh walk on a beach because of the briny salt air I'm getting in it. I'm sorry, I get oak, rye, caramel, and toffee. That's what I'm gonna get.
I mean, I didn't really love the blind because I don't have a bottle of Four Roses or Elijah Craig, and those are my 1-2 here on my votes. So now I have to go buy them and explain it to my wife.
I'll hook you up.
No, you've already hooked me up too many times. Well, thank you so much for joining us as we worked our way through some mid-shelf bourbons here in this blind. I mean, it opened my eye up to a few bourbons that I haven't tried before. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us. You were an amazing guest. I mean, our first guest, so the most amazing guest.
Thanks for having me, boys. Great night together. Absolutely love this Buffalo Trace. It was our first one. Save the best for last. Looking forward to polishing it off as we close out tonight.
And we're Northern Proof. You can find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Just hit up Northern Proof. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell. And have a wonderful evening, day, or wherever you're listening.
It's that time again. Share good proof. Share good proof. It's been a lot of whiskey. Share good whiskey and let the proof do the talking.
Cheers, boy.